Hello, Jenna. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Hi.
We were just talking about this, but I remember the reason I really wanted to chat with you is I remember that a while ago you had sent me a direct message. I don't always remember every direct message people because I get a few hundred, in a month.
hmm
But I remember your message because you said I had helped you make a decision about leaving the lab and into medical writing, especially around the time that you were having a baby. And I was like, what? You know, it was just so, I don't know why, but the fact that you had tied that with you having a baby and making such a pivotal decision, when I decided to start this series, I really wanted to talk to you. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, like I was saying, you were absolutely in my ear during maternity leave, like at such this pivotal moment in my life, becoming a mom, switching my whole career trajectory. You were just right there and gave me that confidence, and I'll always be so
Yeah,
grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you too. Prior to that, what were you doing though?
Yeah, prior to medical writing, I was doing my postdoc and before that, grad school and undergrad. So, medical writing is really one of my first career moves.
So you were doing a postdoc, so you were likely on the path to going the, academic tenured professor path.
I sure was. Yep, I really thought that was what I wanted for a very long time. hmm
Then what did I say that changed that, or why did you want to change? I'm sure the baby was part of it, but
hmm
what happened? And you can say if it's the baby, you can say that. But what made you want to switch?
She was definitely a huge part of it, but even before she came along, I started thinking, not only what do I want out of a career, but what do I want out of life? And I was starting to have really candid conversations with my PI about the role as a PI. And of course, people can only speak to their experiences, but a lot
Yeah.
of the themes I was hearing was these are very long days, constantly in the lab. You're always kind of fighting to get that funding. And I just wanted to have more of a work life balance, to be able to have the opportunity to see my little girl grow up more if I was able to. And just, there were things that I wanted otherwise out of a career that I knew I couldn't really get in that PI life. So, what really kind of irked me about my research is I wanted to be able to see the patient impact of my work. And no doubt about it, research is the cornerstone of patient impact, but I wanted to be able to live to see that, and that is often many, many years down the road. So I just knew that there was kind of a shift that I needed to make.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The research getting into the clinic, yeah, is decades in the making. And
hmm
so, what about medical writing though made you want to do that versus other paths?
Yeah, so I always just really loved the scientific communication aspect to all of my research work and grad and postdoc work. I really loved being able to kind of tell the story of a research project, of where it came from, how it got there, why it's important. And I just knew that I could really do that with medical writing. Every research project, every biotech device, pharmaceutical has a story to it. And I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to help kind of translate that story from research from the bench to how it can help patients. And I also thought it was really exciting with medical writing how you are working directly with the researchers, directly with the physicians, and kind of seeing the most late breaking advancements that are out there in science. That was really exciting to me.
Yeah, yeah. So you finally made that decision. I know from just chatting with you earlier that you work remote, so I'm sure that really
Mhm.
helps with motherhood. And I very,
Game
very
changer.
much. What's that?
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer, right? Versus like if you were a postdoc, you'd have to leave the baby behind because that's exactly what happens. I had my baby during my PhD and I had to leave him behind to go to the lab to do
Yeah.
research and then come back. And
hmm
if you want that bonding time, I had like maybe 6 weeks to be with him and then I had to go back to work. For anybody that's had a baby before, that's a short amount of time.
It's,
Um,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, such a short amount of time. But anyway, not complaining about that era of my life, but it is a game changer when you can stay home with them. Um, one of the questions I have for you is coming from the lab and going into medical writing.
Mhm.
How did you, what steps did you take to get there? Did you cold apply online? Did you find people to refer you? What was that application process, that process of transitioning? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually in one of your videos where I learned you should really be doing informational interviews. So I reached out to my PI, kind of told him I was having this change of heart. So nervous about it, thinking like, oh, we were going to get you, applying to all of these grants and on this track. What happened? But he was like, no, this is wonderful. This is a great career move. I fully support you. And I actually have a network who is into medical writing. So I was very surprised to learn all of the people who go into medical writing after completing a PhD or a postdoc. And he gave me this wonderful list of people that I could talk to. And so I just started reaching out saying, hey, I'm thinking about getting into medical writing. I would like to hear more about what the day to day is actually like. Do you have any time to maybe chat about this? And I spoke with a handful of people, heard nothing but positive notes about this field. And then I also started sending out applications to anything that job postings I was seeing on LinkedIn, on Indeed. So reaching out, to people to learn about it, sending out applications. And I was so lucky that in one of these informational interviews, it was with the CEO of the company that I currently work with. I was not expecting, I didn't see any job posting or anything for this company, so I wasn't expecting anything but wonderful information from this interview.
Yeah.
And the interview actually ended with, we may have an opportunity coming up soon, and we would love to reach out to you if that happens. And a few weeks later, I heard from her again, and it was just wonderful how that worked out.
Yeah, no, that's so incredible. So your informational interviews didn't just help you gather information, but also helped you get a job. That's such a good
Yes.
story.
It was so great. And I think, a perk to that too is it was an informational interview. It wasn't a job interview. So I feel like I was much more relaxed and open and be able to discuss what I wanted out of a career. And I think just that more relaxed environment actually was helpful.
Yeah. No, you bring up a really good point about being relaxed. Like in your case, you didn't even realize that this was going to lead to your job, so you were relaxed. But even for
Right.
actual job interviews, a really good tip I've heard and which really works is just go and have a conversation, right? And this is
Absolutely.
advice I give to people.
That's
Yeah,
great
it's
advice.
advice I give to people like you're learning as much about them as they are of you. So
Yes.
yeah,
hmm Yeah,
yeah,
and to
just
think about it
relax.
too, they want you to win. They want, they
Yeah,
sought you out for a reason and they need somebody, so they're on your side too.
yeah, they're on your side too. And this became very, very apparent to me recently. We had an opening for our scientist team. So I'm on an R&D team. The way I
Okay.
always have to explain my role because my whole team is a research and development team, but I'm the only person taking their stuff and turning that into content, right?
Oh, wow.
So yes, so that's my role. I don't have a team. I'm the content person for an R&D team. And so we were hiring a new scientist and listen, when before he came in, we all wanted him to win. We all wanted him to have that job. He was a little nervous. He ended up getting the job, but I remember when he came in and everybody in the room saw how nervous we were all like, just calm down, just take deep
Oh,
breaths. It's
that's sweet.
okay. So, because in reality, like all of us, we were in the room trying to interview him, but most of us were like just thinking, okay, we're thinking about our kids or like our lunch break or like the next
Right.
experiment. People are not really just focused on you at the time. And so being in the interviewer seat, it just taught me sometimes we just put undue pressure on ourselves.
Absolutely. Do you think that happens more in people who have a PhD who are used to going through defense processes and thinking that everything is just kind
A
of a grill
defense.
session?
It may be. I've not. This is a good hypothesis, but I do think that yes, and even I've mentioned this to people before that even the language we use within academia to for these things like defend, that's a very
Yes.
warlike term.
Yeah, it sure is.
So it's sort of like you're going to war to defend something, So like when you have to defend your
Yes.
dissertation, like I understand that English words always have multiple meanings,
Mhm.
but in even defense, I feel like because there's a Department of Defense, and what's their job? Their job.
Oh, yeah.
So you're
Hmm.
going to have to fight for your life. So I think sometimes, yes, I do agree that we go into these things thinking we're fighting with the people in the
Hmm.
interview, when in reality, I think a lot of people just want you to win. And so just have a conversation with them.
Absolutely. Hmm.
So after this informational interview, you got a, did you go through another interview process at that point?
Um, yes, yes, there was one more conversation. It wasn't so much, it didn't feel, well, it did feel like an interview, but it felt more like I was interviewing them. They were more so telling me about the job. So it felt like it was kind of the first time we spoke was my half in a way to kind of describe, what I'm about, what I've done, what I'm looking for. And then that second one was learning more about the company.
Okay. Real good. All right. So then moving on, you get the job. What
Mhm.
does your day to day entail?
It is different every day, and that's actually something I really love about medical writing. So, we pair with anywhere from Fortune 500 biotech pharma companies to people who are in the lab and they're trying to do a startup company. And our work can really vary depending on who we're working with. We can be writing manuscripts so we can get clinical trial data and put together a manuscript for publication just based on some data and some background information. We can do white papers where we're writing to more of a medical audience. We can do patient information, green papers. We do a lot of systematic literature reviews too. A lot of pharma and biotech companies will come to us with a research question before they start pursuing a next project to get really in depth background information. So we'll do a lot of literature reviews using the software called Nested Knowledge, which is really great. And then I will work on grants too. So a lot of NIH, SBIR, STTR grants. And a lot of that work is fun because I'm working directly with the client, learning about what they are developing, how they plan on doing it, and putting together this fun grant and trying to get them funding.
Hey, did you know that I speak to and train groups at universities, colleges, and professional organizations on the topics I cover on this channel? I do. So if your group would like to bring me in virtually or in person to cover intentional career design, personal branding that builds your career, careers within scientific communications or biotech, go to theboldphd.com/speaking.
Yeah. No, and when I worked at an agency, my work was very like my work is varied now too. But I remember at an agency, sort of like you're describing, I ended up working on a plethora of documents, and that gave me a lot of knowledge skills. What is a green paper? I've never heard of that term.
Oh, yeah. So a green paper is really kind of what a company uses internally if they want to get a snapshot of a study. So it's typically just like a two-page extended, more in-depth abstract, I guess you could describe it as. Hmm.
Okay, got it. All right. So you do all this work and you're working remote. So how do you balance the life and work working remote?
Yeah. Well, what I think a lot of people who come out of a graduate program can understand is during that time, your days almost never end. So At one point, I was in grad school and I moved to start my postdoc while still finishing up my dissertation. So I would work in the postdoc lab all day, work on my defense at night, and it was just 24/7. So actually getting into medical writing has given me a work-life balance that I haven't known in a long time. I work 8-hour days, and when I'm done, I'm done. I'm not receiving emails at night. I'm not working on projects on the weekend. It's just a really beautiful balance. And there's a lot of flexibility in it too. Of course, you're going to have the occasional scheduled meeting and you're going to have deadlines, but you can kind of pick up and set down your work when you need to. That has been huge. And just being able to turn off your work when you need it to be done.
You know, I was reading recently, no, maybe a year ago, about how for some people, for some remote workers or work from home people, sometimes the demarcation between their day ending and life starting is blurred, right? Because
Yeah.
technically you could, I mean, if you have a meeting, your calendar, so you have to jump on a call, but technically you could, let's say, go, and if you have your child in daycare, go pick that child up, or you have your child at school, go pick them up, or you could go to the gym. Or there's been, definitely a lot of misconceptions about remote work. And so sometimes that maybe people that, because their office is at home, or because their workspace is at home, they can't shut work off. How do you
Yeah.
accomplish that?
That actually was something that I did struggle with at first. So I was still in that grad school mindset where I should be working 24/7. And like you said, when you're working at home, you have your computer next to you all of the time. So I would always just be thinking, like, oh, I could get this done, I could get that done, I could improve that. And so I just started realizing that I made this switch largely in part to have that work-life balance, and I just made a conscious effort to really kind of set working hours for myself. So maybe, today I'll start at 7 and be done at 3. I'll try to keep it just within a tight boundary and just leave it be. And I do not have my email app on my phone anymore, so I make that a little bit more separate so I'm not constantly checking that. And yeah, just really kind of have in mind a cutoff time during your day. Of course, it doesn't always work. Of course, I really do get pulled to something largely in part because the work I do is fun and I get excited about a project and want to keep it going.
Yeah.
But really just kind of making a conscious effort to respect my time.
Yeah. I think that the hack with the email not being on your phone, work email not being on your phone, that's a really good one. I personally I used to have my work email accessible on my phone, and I had my company uses Microsoft Teams, and so I would be on Microsoft Teams, I'd be checking messages, and at some point I had to tell myself when I leave work, because I go to the office 4 days a week. But I'm like, when I leave work, I leave work. So
Yeah.
I uninstalled Microsoft Teams on my phone, and don't have I have for a very long time not had work email. I have my personal email on my phone, but not work emails, because
Oh, yeah.
I want work to stay at work. And I think that's really important to have. Of course, like if you're having fun, like you're describing, that's a different ball game. And sometimes you may give yourself an excuse of an hour or two, and that's fine. Life is not always so rigid. But I find that if you want to have some enjoyment of your life a little bit, there are things you have to let go. Like it's not that serious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
company will go on. Everything will
Yes.
be okay if you get to it tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew somebody who was like this, and literally they were on vacation. They kept on checking their work phone, and I kept on saying, "Stop doing that."
Right.
And on vacation, they got a message from their boss that they needed to leave the vacation and come right now. And they
What?
actually left. Yes, I was so
Oh,
mad
no.
about that. I was incredibly mad. I was like, are you seriously kidding me right now? I told you to stop. Because the reality is that if you don't check that work phone and they send you that message to leave your vacation, well, you didn't see it, right?
Uh-huh.
And so you are not,
Right?
because you are entitled to your vacation. So
Yes.
I really have, I have a thing against reaching out to anybody doing their vacation. I don't reach out to people doing their vacation. I don't expect people to reach out to me. Having boundaries is important.
It is so important. I think that's one thing that my job enforces really well. For example, about a month ago, I was working on a project and things were just kind of coming in hot. Like it was getting
Yeah.
really intense with this project. And my boss actually said to me, put your vacation responder on. Take the rest of the night off. You're done. You've done everything that you need to do. You're doing great. You need to respect your time. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that is not
I
something
know. That's so different from my
heard.
that's so different, right? That is
Yes.
really, yeah, that really is so different. But it's great when you have bosses like that. We're really grateful for bosses like that. For
Yeah.
somebody that is thinking of coming into this profession, because I get emails, and yesterday I even got an email about medical writing and what should I do. For
Mhm.
somebody who wants to come into this profession in 2025 with the market that we have, with everything going on, what advice would you give them? What steps can they start taking?
I would say start trying to make a profile of your work. And even if you've never done medical writing before, if you went to school, you very likely have something that you can tweak into a product that maybe you would do with medical writing. So if you've written a report before, try to tweak it into this beautiful white paper. If you've written a blog post before, freshen it up and put that out there. Just really start doing this not only to practice your own writing, but so you have something that you can show to potential recruiters. And of course, everyone can go look for job postings, but I think I learned such a valuable lesson that there are so many opportunities out there that are not going to be advertised. So get to know people who do what you do, talk with them, and make it, a genuine conversation. Actually be interested in what they're doing, and you never know when an opportunity is going to come up. So you kind of have to make your own opportunities and seek opportunities that maybe aren't so obvious.
Yeah, yeah. Talk to people, because you're right about opportunities that don't get advertised.
Mm-hmm.
With my first and it was maybe not as quite like yours, but with my first role, I remember I had cold applied. I didn't know the people. It was on LinkedIn. The person
Mm-hmm.
that would become my manager had posted about it, and then I had a conversation with her, and I didn't get the job the first time actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, cool. I was minding my business. I was still adjunct teaching at the time. Then later on, she came back and said, hey, we have a role open, but that role wasn't on the website. It was
Yeah.
just like, she was like, there's a role, you want it? And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
sure. So there are people that even people, interviews that you may go to that don't go well, but maybe they still will have an opportunity for you. And I like
Yeah.
Jenna's tip on doing that. Also, like, you seem to have done really well with the informational interviews, right? So maybe what are some questions people who go on informational interviews should ask to learn
Mm-hmm.
more about the job?
Yeah, I always like to kind of start it out with, what is your day to day like? What do you really like about your job? And a lot of the people I was speaking to came from a similar background to me, so I would ask, what skills have you pulled in from your previous experience into this job?
Yeah. What skills have you pulled from your previous experience into this job? That's such a good question. That is really a good question. Just because I think with a lot of academics, we tend to downplay the skills
Yeah.
or not recognize them for what they are. And so,
Mhm.
what skills did they say were helpful for them? Do you remember some of those?
Being able to learn things fast, especially in medical writing, because you never know what topic you're going to have thrown your way and you have to
That's
get a
true.
good background knowledge.
Yeah.
Being able to really understand what good research is. So, being able to vet the methods of a research study, see, are these statistical analyses appropriate for what they were asking. I think another really good skill is learning how to interpret data cautiously. Sometimes you'll see papers come out there that are making these huge headlines or titles or discussions that don't exactly fit what their research question was and what their data says. It's really kind of a stretch. So I think being able to really critically think about research is a huge skill that comes in. And of course, writing. Anyone in a PhD program has written thousands of pages over the course of their work. So that writing experience really is huge. And being able to learn how to collaboratively write. I was very lucky in that during my program that my wonderful PI and I would go back and forth a million times on a manuscript. So being able to learn how to take in feedback and apply it and adapt your writing is huge too. Those were really the main themes, I would say.
Those are the main themes. And I would agree with each one of them. Learning quickly, being able to tell, what good research is, and being able to take feedback. And also, I want to add that being able to take feedback and not take it personally.
Oh, yes. Huge.
Yeah, that's huge because sometimes there'll be people that leave you comments and you're like, wow, this could easily like upend your day. But one of the things, one of the frameworks I learned that has been very, very helpful to me is always to see feedback as, oh, this person raised this issue. How can I use that feedback to make this better? Right?
Totally. Absolutely.
And sometimes it's feedback that you can like there's feedback I see and I'm like, no, that's not it. But most of 95% of the time I would say the feedback is meant to help you make your work better and not as a personal attack. Yeah.
Oh, completely. Yeah, and I think being able to just kind of apply that feedback throughout a document rather than just like, oh, this one section could use work in X, Y, and Z way. But being able to really understand, okay, this person is looking for this style of writing, this style of reporting. How can I reflect that throughout whatever I'm working on? It'll make a client a lot happier. You have to be adaptable as a medical writer.
Yeah, you do. Are there any tools, books, resources that you have found helpful in your career journey?
You have been extremely helpful. You've been absolutely wonderful with your interviews and your discussions on YouTube. I mean, like I said, I binged you through maternity leave, so so grateful for those resources. Really just kind of looking at different medical writers on LinkedIn, seeing what they do. Your network is your biggest resource, I think. But other things that have been helpful, like in medical writing, again, kind of your network, just working with your peers. Everyone comes from a different background, and being able to bounce your work back and forth to make it stronger is really helpful. There is this really cool AI-driven research tool called Scite, SCITE, and it's geared toward scientific research in that it pulls from peer-reviewed articles. It's almost like a chat GPT, but then it can pull you actual articles that exist. And there's a really cool feature on it that shows you how many times a paper has been cited and how many of those citations are other papers agreeing with the argument versus disagreeing. And that's been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, Scite. I've not tried that. I will have to go check that out.
You should check it out. Yeah, it's great.
It's great. Well, thank you, Jenna. This has been such a great conversation. I really enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks for spending time with me. If people wanted to find you and implement your advice and have an informational interview with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Jenna Osterlund Oltmans.
Yes, and I will make sure to link your LinkedIn profile in the show notes of this episode. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Thank you. It is awesome to talk to you.